My name is Emily Pegues,
I'm Karen DePeel.
and we're here today to talk to you about managing with an organized labor. The primary goal of a nursing union is to advocate for wages and working conditions. Of the 1,609 Sentinel events that have been reported to the Joint Commission, more than 24% of those were influenced by staffing levels. In the United States, only about 6% of hospitals have reached magnet status with ANCC. Of all U.S. hospitals, only 0.7% of hospitals have reached magnet status while also having a unionized labor nursing union.
Union membership has steadily declined over the last few decades, decreasing from 20% of the workforce in 1983 to only less than 11% in 2015. The decline of unions can be linked to the decline of blue-collar jobs, new laws that protect workers, globalization causing increased competition and the need of efficient processes. Despite the popularity of unions in our nation, less than 20% of physicians and nurses participate in unions in the United States. Nurses are more likely to be unionized, with 19.6% of nurses belonging to a union compared to 8.7% of physicians belonging to a union.
By definition, a collective bargaining unit is a group of workers who come together for the purpose to increase respect on the job, improve wages and benefits, acquire better work-life balance, and develop a voice for employees to improve quality of service. The primary reason for a collective bargaining unit within healthcare is to allow nurses a voice. While clinicians have the right to join a union, these clinicians must be prepared to accept the tactics used by a union during a collective bargaining unit or when that collaboration with the organization breaks down. Historically, implementing slowdowns and strikes have been used by unions when collective bargaining unit communication breaks down. So the question has arisen that we've discussed is, does slowdowns and strikes and these types of tactics used by the union present an ethical dilemma for the clinician who may put the patient in harm's way?
There are some studies that show that collective bargaining tactics used by unions create more effective and equitable work environments that lead to better patient outcomes. Strikes are the union's way to correct and bring light to unjust and inappropriate executive decision-making. Any pursuit of magnet designation must go through the union, as it can modify working conditions and therefore it's a matter of the law. A study of RN job satisfaction and collecting bargaining union membership status found that non-bargaining nurses had a higher job satisfaction in the subcategories of professional relationships, work environment, and patient care compared to the bargaining unit nurses who were more satisfied with their salaries and benefits. Access and continuity of care can be greatly affected by strikes and other collective actions.
So there are several phases to negotiations and organization of a union. There's an initial contact stage where the union is judging employee interest into forming a union. The initial contact can either be done by the employees of an organization who reach out to the union to discuss their options, or it can be the union and other union members making contact with employees of a certain organization. The next step is to obtain authorization cards. These cards are signed by employees who agree to join a union and agree that a union election should be heard. In order for the organization, for the union to move forward with an election, 30% of eligible employees must sign authorization cards. This allows the union to petition for an election. Once that happens, the employer has an option to either contest or not contest the formation of the union. If the employer does not contest, then we move forward with an election. If the employer does contest, then campaigns and hearings must be held before an election can move forward. Elections take place in secret ballot with voting booths, and all of that is provided by the union. If the union is voted in, then a negotiating team is established and collective bargaining will begin.
Collaborating with labor unions requires an employer who believes that nurses can play a role in improving the quality of care delivered and not just simply task-driven bedside caregivers. Management often feels threatened by unions because management can lose their ability to make decisions about terms and conditions of work. The union can be viewed as an expensive middleman. Regardless of the number of nurses in unions, little information was available to us regarding the nurses' work experience, their job satisfaction, or their turnover. Lessons learned from organizations successfully collaborating with unions include the need to share in decision making, assure solution-oriented issue resolution with a reduction in grievances, engage employees and managers in jointly evaluating and improving the work processes in their own areas. Hospitals are focusing on keeping the RN workforce, increasing satisfaction, as well as decreasing turnover.
In my experience as a healthcare provider, I've never worked for a unionized facility. However, I did have some experience working for a hospital that had a union presence essentially come in and try to make that initial contact with employees. One of the things that I found as a manager in that organization was the quick action by the executive team, by the hospital as a whole, in their action to educate managers and directors on their role. So it's very important to understand that employers and hospital leaders cannot interview, restrain, coerce employees in regards to their contact with the union or their signing of an authorization card. They cannot interfere with the formation or administration of a union, and they can't discriminate against any employee who takes part in trying to bring a union in or is a union leader once it is established. In my own personal experience, when the union made initial contact, the corporation brought in an attorney to sit down and do education with all managers and directors to make sure that this type of interference didn't occur. Two takeaways that I had from this is to remember the acronym TIPS for what you should not do. You should never threaten, interrogate, make promises, or spy. On the contrary, you should remember 4 to know what you can do. Provide facts, express your opinions, explain factually correct rules, and share your experiences of working with the union and not working with the union.
Social media is a great way for unions to communicate. It allows for such a rapid exchange of information that at times questions are being answered almost before they're even asked. The use of live chats on whether it's Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, is also a good way, but the good old-fashioned emails can also be helpful in communicating and dispensing information as well as answering questions.
This topic is actually incredibly timely for those of us who live in the Kansas City area. As most of you know, for the August election, there is a Prop A on the ballot in the state of Missouri that if it approves in the August election, Missouri can become a right-to-work state as opposed to if it's defeated. So as any election time, you're seeing posters, campaigns, commercials all the time. Well, this Prop A, or the right to work, being implemented in the state of Missouri is everywhere. And it's been interesting to me to learn about these types of tactics that they use and compare it to the constant billboards I see when driving around town and the commercials that are around that are constantly on. And it's very much highlighted, I think, the union money that is spent to come in and campaign to prevent Missouri from becoming a right-to-work state. The right to work essentially says that what it will do for the union in the state of Missouri is incredibly drop their dues. So if Missouri becomes a right-to-work state, people who work for a unionized workforce, such as nurses in Kansas that work for a hospital that is unionized, are not required to pay dues or be a member of that union, essentially. So it could have a great effect on union in the state of Missouri if it's passed.
I have personally been in 2 different hospitals that have been unionized. The first one was in Michigan, and I was a brand new grad. And I already had my BSN, and the only thing the union really did for me was I got a whole 50 cents an hour more for having a BSN versus an ASN. And I paid out a whole lot of money in union dues, and I'm really not sure what it did for me. Maybe there was more that I was unaware of, but I just knew a lot of money was going out of my check. And the second experience was in the state of New York, and when I hired into that hospital, it was not union. And the union reps came in and they made a vote, and it ended up being a union hospital. And I decided to do my due diligence, go to a rally, kind of learn a little bit more. And I walked into this, I think it was in a school, and I walked into this building and I felt immediately scared. It was hostile, it was wall-to-wall people, people were angry. There was just a lot going on, and I was a little nervous to be there, and I did not stay very long, and I was anxious to leave. Within a few weeks of that rally, they came and told us basically what was going to happen. And I don't think that a lot of people understand, when a union comes in, you start from scratch. You don't have anything. The benefits that you had beforehand are gone, and they negotiate from the beginning on up. And this particular hospital and the union that did come in, they ended up every single nurse lost 40 hours of their PTO, so everybody lost a week of vacation. It was just gone. All holidays now were straight time, so nobody got time and a half or any bonuses in that respect. And I believe about 400 people ended up losing their jobs, were laid off, because the hospital was trying to get the resources to meet the demands of the union. It was a very bad environment. I happened to end up moving, so I didn't stay there very long after this was implemented, and right after I moved, the nursing staff went on strike. And I'll be honest, I don't know what happened after that, but it left a very bad taste in my mouth. So when anyone asks my opinion, do we want a union to come in? Based on my experience, the answer is no, just personal experience. And as a leader in an organization, I can share that information because it's my own personal experience versus, stepping over the line as a manager or director. You have to be careful. So personal experiences are a great thing to share with your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this. We look forward to taking your questions over the next week. Thank you.
Thanks.